Welcome to Upticks. I'm Jake Falcon, the founder of Falcon Wealth Advisors and your host of Upticks. Today is episode 119, Your Questions Answered. Cory, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. Feels good.
Wow, it's been a while since you and I have teamed up on one of these, hasn't it?
It has. Apparently, the attire has gotten a little bit more casual since last time.
I am business casual today. As of the recording of this show, it's going to be in the 60s in Kansas City, so I am going to play golf after the market closes.
Got to do it. Good for you.
Get a little bit of fresh air and some exercise before winter hits. What have you been up to?
Really not a whole lot. Probably like a lot of people, just trying to, of course, be safe and be cautious. Have been spending a lot of time at work and a lot of time at home. I played a lot of tennis, and there's a game I played called platform tennis. That's an outdoor sport this time of year. So I played a lot of that. Tried to stick with running that I've been doing a little bit, and have a couple books I'm reading, shows I'm watching, but spending a lot of time at home.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm glad you're staying safe and healthy. And we hope all of you out there are staying safe and healthy as well. For today's topic, we wanted to talk about, and the reason Cory we brought Cory back on the show is that we've been hearing a lot of the same questions coming up in client meetings. And so we wanted to address those on Upticks, because you may be thinking some of these things and just haven't had a chance to ask us. Or if you're working with another financial advisor, maybe your advisor hasn't answered the question or doesn't know the answer. So Cory, why don't you take us away and kick off with a question that you've been hearing a lot of, and you and I will discuss, what our response typically has been.
Okay. So the first question I have for you, Jake, is, do you think taxes are going to change next year? And if so, do you think I should change the way that I'm making contributions to my 401k? Meaning, should I start making pre-tax contributions or Roth contributions?
That's a really good question. And that's a tough one, because the big thought is, if we do get a big blue wave, meaning Biden wins the White House, which we think is probably going to happen. The big wild card, though, is we won't know until January, is if the Senate is going to be controlled by Republicans or Democrats.
Right.
It's my understanding that the Republicans need to win one of two of the Senate's seats in Georgia that's up for a runoff that we'll find out early January. And then, of course, the Democrats kept the House. So to answer the question, do I think taxes are going to go up? I think no matter who is in political power, taxes are going to go up. They have to. And the reality is they have to, because of all the stimulus money that's been pumped into America. Somehow we're going to have to pay that back. Now, so do I think, though, that you should be making drastic shifts in your portfolio or your savings? Not necessarily. So it's going to be client by client specific. I think on a broad level, I would not hit the panic button and start doing things extreme. But if I have a client that was looking at selling some stock maybe and realizing some gains, and it was going to happen this year or next year, maybe we'll do that this year, right? Because we were going to do it anyways. Or if your client could benefit by putting more money in their 401k pre-tax, maybe they go ahead and do that. Now, normally, this is what's a little risky about it. They can change the tax code in 2021, and sometimes they'll make that retroactive as of January. Not always, but that's right. There's some real concern there and fear. However, even if the Democrats get the Senate, I don't think a big, deep blue wave is going to happen, because it's so close that I don't think we're going to get this extreme where they're taxing 401ks or we're in socialism. I don't think the Green New Deal is going to happen. I don't think a lot of that stuff that was initially on the table is going to happen now. I think things are going to drift more to the middle. And so if you do see a taxes increase, I think it'll be on a pretty moderate level. But if you want to do some tax planning now about at least the current tax codes, contact Falcon Wealth Advisors. We can do some of that for you. A good one, Cory. That's a really good one.
Thank you.
What else you got?
If you're ready for the next one, I guess I'll just give you the opportunity here, because it kind of ties into the first question I asked. But what I was going to ask you is, because this has been asked of me, what are your expectations that what impact would either a blue wave or a split Congress have in DC what kind of market impact would that have? And I think in some ways, maybe you just answered some of that, but if you have anything that you want to add to it, go for it.
Yeah, and feel free to chime in on these questions if I missed out on something. But
Yeah.
From a market perspective, a divided Congress is the best environment. And that's why, frankly, I believe we saw the market rally leading into the election, because that's what it's looking like is going to happen. Now, I understand as a citizen, it can be frustrating because you might want changes made and that might not happen. From a market perspective, though, a split Congress, divided Congress, whatever you want to call it, is the best environment historically speaking. And that's what we are expecting. I don't, like I said, even if the Democrats barely win the Senate, I don't think we're going to get this huge blue wave, because some of those Democrats in the Senate have come out and said, well, I'm not going to vote for this, or I'm not going to vote for that. And so
Exactly.
I think the concerns of the blue wave are behind us.
Yeah.
I think the split Congress is probably what's going to happen, even if the Democrats win. You may get a little bit of a sell-off, but it's not going to be anything catastrophic. I think the attention now needs to refocus on COVID and getting that under control. I think, especially after January, once we find out who wins the Georgia runoffs, this should be behind us, so we should be moving forward as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make. And from my perspective too, regardless of what happens, you can basically paint a narrative however you want to paint it, because we've heard, if people watch CNBC or Fox Business or read whatever sources they do on the markets, where every other commentator says, a blue wave would be a good thing for the market because the Democratic Party would just be printing unlimited money and putting it into the hands of so many people. The stimulus package would be so large that it would help the market. That's one narrative. But then on the other hand, a split Congress that you just said historically has been the best environment. A split Congress means that maybe they're not able to get as large of a stimulus done, and therefore the market wouldn't perform as well. But I guess the way I see it is, you can really paint the narrative however you want, but you kind of have to let things play out. And even just going back a few weeks prior to this election, we see what the market has done since then. That if, the day before the election, somebody would have said, well, I'm worried about this potential outcome, so I'm going to make a drastic change. With the benefit of hindsight, now we probably wish that we wouldn't have done that. So I would imagine as December and January approaches, it should very much be the same. And then what are the things that we can control?
Right. And I think his name is David O'Leary. Is that his name? Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank?
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, thank you. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. He's an extreme capitalist. And he's been on CNBC lately pounding the table saying, look, COVID's awful. It's a horrible thing. It's disrupting not only, physical lives and a health stance, also economic things are being disrupted. And his argument is, look, good companies are going to adapt and change and move forward. And we have to probably let the bad companies that can't adapt and change and move forward, sadly, go out of business. And he's arguing that this is a huge shift in the way that companies are doing business. So you made me think of that when you said, well, if the government passed stimulus and pumped everything up, you have to be careful, because you don't want these zombie companies forming that are getting stimulus, but there's no demand for their goods, and there's not going to be demand. And one thing I talk to about with my clients are movie theaters, and I don't know when I'm going to go to a movie theater again. Right. And maybe that's just me, but I doubt it. I bet, some people are like, you know what, it's fine. I'd go right now. I'd wear a mask and go. But I think a lot of other people, though, are like, I'm not going to go back. My Netflix is fine. Right. Or Amazon Prime. And I bet once the networks and the production companies can start cranking out movies again when it's safe, they're just going to release them straight to TV, and you're just going to pay 10 or 20 bucks to watch it at home. You're not going to have to go to the theater. So again, movie theaters, I'm concerned about, maybe drive-ins though emerge, right? And so I know that's kind of already been a thing that drive-ins have opened it back up. So maybe drive-in theaters become huge and they're all over the place. But these in-store movie theaters, they're a thing of the past. I don't know. So that's what you have to be careful of, right? And that's what we are doing from our perspective when we're picking stocks for clients. We're making sure we're picking companies that we think are not only going to weather the COVID storm well, that are actually going to emerge out of this even better and stronger companies than they were before.
Yep, I agree completely. And my me bringing up the point about some, massive fiscal stimulus earlier is more just reiterating the fact that people can make a narrative sound like,
Sure.
this particular outcome will be best or this one will be best.
Right.
So the point is, time will tell, right? I mean,
Right.
like you said, good companies will adapt and make money and prosper and thrive.
Right. Good.
Right,
Get
good.
another one for me?
Yes, I actually have two more for you.
Okay.
The next one that I have is, what is the biggest mistake that you see people make when it comes to their retirement, where ultimately their retirement does not work out the way that they planned?
Fascinating. That's a really good question. Props to whomever asked you that. I like that one a lot. The number one, if I only give one,
or I think if you give, a few, that would be appropriate.
How many did you give? How did you answer that question?
I said, in my experience, what I've seen where somebody's retirement has not worked out the way that they planned is they didn't have any sort of concept of how much their concept of how much money that they needed was not as aligned with reality as it should have been.
Good one. Good one. Yeah, you're right. I would agree with that. A lot of my clients, we try to keep that take-home spending the same or higher in retirement.
Yes.
Very few, I have clients that have done this, but very few spend less, believe it or not, in retirement. And you're right. You don't want to fool yourself saying, you know what, I'm making $100,000 a year now. I can live off 40.
Right.
You probably can't.
Yeah, you very well might be setting yourself up for failure.
That's a good one. And I think mine is more from a mental standpoint. The biggest mistake I've seen clients make is not embrace what their next chapter is going to look like. And, I talk about this a lot, but they leave their job because they're so unhappy and they think not working is going to make them happy. When that's not always the case. Sometimes it can be, and that's awesome. But sometimes you have to think about, if I'm not doing A, then what is B?
Sure.
And what is my new purpose? And what is going to give me energy and excite me in the morning to wake up? And what is that going to be? I don't like to see it when clients are just running from a career that they can't stand without at least thinking about what does B look like.
Yes.
So I would argue those are the two: under projecting your expenses. And we've got a great budgeting exercise. We'll flash that up on the screen right now. If you have questions about your budget, I highly encourage you to take us up on this budgeting exercise that James or Matt can walk you through on our team. So again, underestimating that budget, or two, not knowing what you're going to do a Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And again, I don't want you to think you have to map out your whole life. What is that purpose? Am I going to exercise more? Am I going to eat healthy? Am I going to volunteer? Am I going to write a book? Am I going to go start a business? Am I going to hunt? What's going to be your new thing?
Am I going to watch my grandkids 3 days a week? Am I going to play golf? Right. I mean, whatever it is.
What's your new thing? Right. And golf shouldn't be the only thing unless you're going to be doing it competitively. I love golf.
You can only golf so much.
Right. I don't think that should be your only thing. Unless you're going to play 7 days a week or 5, 6 days a week. And maybe that's awesome. But you have to understand that still only takes up a little bit. And, you want to kind of think about, these are going to be my 3 or 4 things that I'm going to focus on and I'm going to do.
Let it be known that on November 20th, Jake Falcon said there's only so much you can golf.
I'm always trying to find more.
You're pushing the envelope. I appreciate that. So,
all right, good. Let's do that last question. Yeah, let's hear the last question.
Yeah, last question I have for you is, what is a resource that you would recommend for someone, ideally something that's free, for somebody that is just more interested in learning more about the markets and investing? Not necessarily, the budgeting piece, but, what would you refer someone to if they said, look, I want to stay on top of the markets. I know, you're managing money for me, so I don't need to worry about, taking something at heart or feeling like I need to make changes every day. But what do you think are good resources? Some sort of program, book, podcasts, whatever it might be.
Wow, that's a good one. And again, this isn't an endorsement. So again, my compliance doesn't like me to endorse anybody but ourselves. So, but I'll tell you what I read, right? And, mine gets a little bit more technical, but I think Barron's would be a great place to start. Barron's is a weekly financial publication. It's forward looking. So the Wall Street Journal is going to report what happened, and Barron's is normally what's ahead. I like Barron's a lot. I think there's a free thing you can do with Bloomberg that you and I both subscribe to. What's it called? 5 things.
You need to know in the markets today or something.
5 things you need to know. So it's just a 1-a-day email, really early in the morning. It'll tell you these are the 5 things we're looking at. If you want to keep in the know, I think that's a good one. I think our blogs, I'm biased. I think our blogs and podcasts are fantastic. So let's do a quick shout out to that. You're obviously watching or listening to Upticks. Cory, you have yours called In the Money Insight, which is right here on Falcon Wealth Advisors YouTube channel. Also, it's out there on Spotify and iTunes. And then James Lewis has his own podcast called The Financial Philosopher or Financial Philosophy, where he discusses pensions currently, but he's going to be diving into a variety of topics. So you've got 3 content sources from Falcon Wealth Advisors alone every week. And, ours are blogs too. So if you don't like to listen to everything, you can also go to our website and read it. So we've got that. I think Barron's and I think Bloomberg. And again, those aren't endorsements. I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm telling you what I'm looking at. What about you? How did you answer that?
Yeah. So I had mentioned the same Bloomberg newsletter. I think I had actually mentioned Barron's in my response too. Of course, I mentioned Falcon Wealth Advisors content.
All right.
But I gave a few book suggestions also.
What were the books?
So one was the book that you and I just read, The Psychology of Money.
Really
and I
good
said,
one.
while that doesn't pertain necessarily to investments specific, it's part of it, but it's very relevant, I think. And it was one of the better finance books I've read. And then I also recommended the book, Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth, a book that you and I,
Nick Murray, right?
A couple years ago, Nick Murray, exactly.
Another good one. Yeah. Maybe we can flash that up on the screen. Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. It's a good one.
Kind of a timeless book, I think, for for people that are thinking about investing in the markets. That's all I've got.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Yeah. And so thank you for tuning in. If hopefully some of these questions are ones that you've been asking or thinking about. If we didn't answer your question, please send me an email. My email is jake@falconwealthadvisors.com. And Cory, what's yours?
Cory@falconwealthadvisors.com.
Right, and that's Cory. A lot of people like to throw an E in there. Cory. You got to thank your parents for that one. Is that a family name?
No.
I like Cory, 4 letters. Don't get me wrong. It's just probably misspelled a lot.
Yeah, I've had E's end up in there all the time.
Yeah, so
K's end up in there sometimes.
Kori. How about that one?
I've seen that. I've seen it.
So, and also, if we could flash up, I'm on all the social media platforms, as is Cory. I'm out there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I love to connect with new people all the time. So please feel free to send me a friend request, and you can get more of our content and our thoughts through our social media channels. Cory, real quick, before we wrap up the show, you did mention that you've been reading some books or watching some shows. You got any recommendations of things you've been reading?
Yeah. So as far as reading goes, obviously the book that you and I just talked about, the most recent book that I read was a book by a rapper that was good, but I don't know if I would, it was a little shallow. It's kind of what you'd expect. It's kind of a self-help motivational book. However, the book that I'm getting ready to crack into, in fact, this weekend.
What was the book you just read? What was the book you just read?
It was called Gucci Mane's Guide to Greatness.
All right. So you would not recommend that? Okay.
No, probably not.
What are you reading? What are you going to read right now?
To me that I'm getting ready to start is called Open, which is the autobiography of Andre Agassi, the tennis player.
Ah, interesting. And you're a tennis guy. That's kind of cool.
I've heard it's really, really good. I think it was written like 10 years ago. I've never read it, but evidently his is more open and transparent than most people are. Interesting. And evidently he hated tennis and still hates tennis his whole career. So anyway, that's what I'm going to start this weekend. I'm interested in. So
nice. I'm reading 5 books, I think, right now, believe it or not. I'm reading Ray Dalio's Principles, really thick book. It's been really good. It's about management, basically managing company. I'm reading How to Retire Happy, Wild, and Free, which is a good one from one of our clients, actually recommended it to me. I'm not done. I've just started that one, kind of reading it. I'm also reading Meditation by Deepak Chopra. It's been a good one so far. I'm pretty far along in that one. What else am I reading? I'm reading Black Edge by, it's about Steve Cohen, a corrupt hedge fund manager. One of my friends and clients recommended that one to me. And I think that might be it. That's a lot though, right? I'm reading 4, I guess, at once right now. I'm trying to think of,
and I have a couple of others too now that I think about it.
I don't recommend those. That's just kind of what I've been doing. I mean, I try to read try to read almost every day. I don't read every day, but I've been trying to get in there and read more, whether it's over lunch or after work in the evenings. But it's been good. So.
No, that is good. That is good. The one other book that I'm reading now that I'm not going to suggest or recommend that somebody necessarily needs to go out and read it, but my goal is to take away enough information from it to be able to share more in our podcast and blogs, et cetera, to make that productive for you, is this Retirement 101. I think you read this, Jake.
I think I did read that one. Yep.
It's a crash course in retirement planning.
Pretty good.
So I've been reading that kind of here in the mornings or in the evenings as well.
It's a pretty good one. Yeah.
It is good. There's a lot in there, but it's all very relevant.
And I will do a quick plug for that. Maybe we can throw up some pictures on this as well. We have a complimentary library for clients where we've built out in both of our offices books that we do recommend that we share with clients that we'll send to you basically. So if you do have a book from one of our recommended reading lists that you do want to check out, let me know and we'll send it to you. The idea was you'd come into our office and just grab it, but we didn't
time that quite right.
Right. So if we've brought up a book and you want to check it out, let us know. We'll send you a copy. And certainly we're going to keep building out that library. All right, very good. That's all the time that we do have for you today. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to receive our content. That's the #1 way to make sure you don't miss an episode of Upticks. Thank you so much. If you want to mash the thumbs up button or like, that's again how more people get to see our great content. We are still accepting referrals at Falcon Wealth Advisors. So if you know anyone that can benefit from our services, we're happy to help them out and meet with them on a confidential, complimentary basis to just tell them, hey, this is what kind of shape you're in today. This is what we would do to help you hit your financial goals. And this is what it does all cost if you do want to work with us. We're happy to take anyone who's interested in getting some help from us through that process. Thank you again. We hope you all have a safe week.